Have you ever felt torn between the struggle of you wanting to forgive your parents for their past mistakes, and you really want to, but also on the other side, the feeling of you cannot forgive them and the pain is too strong and you cannot do this? So in this episode, I want to discuss this kind of dilemma, which many people face, many people struggle with, because in my opinion, there are a few sides to that, and we need to kind of take the different sides into consideration in order to come to, with ourselves, to come to a common ground regarding this question, if we can forgive the abusive parents, if under the light of that everybody's giving their best. So enjoy listening and let's dive in. So there's this big question of, can love and pain coexist? Can we forgive everything that happened? Or will there always be this part of us that cannot forgive? And because I've seen people struggling with that question, and I've heard discussions about it, even people from two different sides kind of attacking each other for the other not validating their viewpoint. And I completely get it, where everybody's coming from, because I had this struggle as well. It's very contradicting. It's a huge dilemma. And I want to give my perspective on that, how I did it, how I dealt with that dilemma. And so first I want to give the definition of forgiveness. I wrote it down. I have my paper again. I wrote it down. So what is forgiveness? Forgiveness is the conscious decision to release feelings of anger, resentment, revenge towards someone who has harmed you, even if they don't deserve it or haven't apologized. It's an act of letting go for your own peace, not for the benefit of the other. So this definition brings us to a few points, that letting go even if the other hasn't apologized. And I think this is where the issue starts for many people, the reasons why we cannot forgive. I mean, if we agree that we need to forgive in order to free ourselves, because everybody kind of knows that if I forgive, then I will be free. I will be free of the chains of the past, and I can live freely and happily. But why is it so hard then? Why is it such a struggle? And it's so beautiful. Snow falls down. For everybody who's not watching, just listening, there was just some snow falling down. And it's like a little fairy tale forest here. So I highly encourage you to watch on YouTube, because the scenery is amazing with all the snow mountains. However, so I was writing down a few points why we cannot forgive, what hinders us. And then I want to dive into the two perspectives that, in my opinion, are really important to really see them as two perspectives, because there are different layers to that. There are different levels to that. We cannot just see it from one point. We need to look from a few different angles. So, why can we not forgive? Of course, the wounds are so deep. We cannot. It's too painful. We have still this anger and sadness so strongly that the idea of even forgiving is kind of not occurring to us at all. Then what I think is a really important point is the sense of injustice. And I have felt that so strongly in my healing journey, that the idea of forgiving is somehow feels letting the other off the hook, or somehow making it okay what they did, making it was not so bad, because that's why I cannot forgive. I cannot forgive because it was so bad. So we kind of subconsciously cling to the not forgiving, because there was no solution, there was no apology, the other didn't really acknowledge the pain they have caused. So this feels somehow wrong to say, okay, I forgive, and we act as if nothing happens and stuff. And I will, like, in a few minutes explain how I view forgiveness. And but yeah, this injustice thing, I think it's a big point for many people, that they never got an apology. The other person doesn't even realize what they did, all the struggles we had resulting out of the treatment we got, or the abuse we endured, or like the betrayal, or like all these things. So it can be really tough to even come to the point to want to forgive, because kind of we don't want to, like, no. And yes, of course, lack of empathy from the parents also goes into that you kind of don't want, no, I don't want. It's this anger we're holding on to. Then of course lingering in anger and sadness is also kind of comes into that. We and it's so interesting, because when you have experienced abuse really early on in your life, probably it kind of affected your self-image. So you subconsciously have this kind of self-image of you being, how to say, not being a victim, but the abused one, the depressed one, the one with the addictions, the scapegoat. Especially when it was narcissistic abuse, which always targets the self-worth. And so you have this kind of self-image of being angry, being depressed, being sad. And so you kind of hold on to that. And for a person to break their self-image, to kind of reorganize, restructure their self-image and the whole worldview, it takes a lot of courage, and it takes a lot of willingness to do that, because it like changes your whole life, and it's way out of the comfort zone, it's way out of the known. And this is why it's so hard for so many people, because who am I without the anger? Who am I without all the sadness? Who am I without the depression? Of course, nobody wants to have depression. But in some way, and I really can confirm that from my experience, the toxic stuff, even toxic towards ourselves, with addictions and other kind of harming behavior, it's somehow comforting because we know it. It's so, I don't know the English. Yeah, we just know that. It's our comfort zone. Also a point that came to my mind is not forgiving feels somehow strong. Like you made your point, like, no, I cannot forgive. Like forgiving feels sometimes like being weak and giving in, and being the weak one who cannot enforce their own boundaries. And then of course, feeling of love and resentment at the same time is really confusing, is really weird, and it makes it tough to forgive. And the discussion, what came, my spirit gave me the idea to make this video. What came to my mind is that discussion I heard from other people talking about trauma and spirituality, and they were both talking about the same thing, but from two completely different viewpoints. And so I have to change. So the one person said he was coming from a more logical, worldly, practical, physical viewpoint, however you want to call it. The other one was coming from the spiritual viewpoint, and I will come to that in a second. So the one was saying, the spiritual one was saying, basically, everybody is doing their best. There's no guilt. Everybody acts out of their level of consciousness. And so the baseline is, there is no really a forgiving because there was no guilt. You know what I mean? There can just be a forgiving if the other person did something wrong and you are in the position like, I forgive you. And he was kind of questioning that and said, this doesn't really exist because everybody acts out of their level of consciousness. So who are we even to judge or to decide who is to be forgiven, or you know what I mean? So, and in my experience, especially when you had really strong experiences meditating, or when you had really intense experiences in psychedelic settings or plant medicine settings, when you experience this, everything is one, and you completely see the family lineage, you understand everything on such a deep level, and you feel the hurt of the parents as well. And so his perspective is completely valid in my opinion. I completely get what he means, that on a really high level, there's no forgiveness because there's no guilt. So that's that. And the other person, the other guy, was kind of reacting on that video and saying, he was getting really angry and saying, this completely invalidates all what victims experience, and it invalidates the whole concept of being abused, and that the one is the perpetrator and the other one is the victim, and really bad things happened, and that everybody has the right not to forgive. And also that perspective I completely agree with, because that is like the practical worldly level, the level of me as Franziska, being the human, having endured or having experienced all that I have experienced as a human, and that I don't have, that I have all the right in the world not to forgive. So these two parts, the practical level, the practical perspective, and the spiritual perspective, they say different things, but we need to, in my experience, we need to consider both as true in order to come to a common ground with our own forgiveness process. And I have mentioned it a few times in other videos that forgiveness is like such a process. Of course, in my opinion, it starts with the decision. You come to terms with yourself. You realize the not forgiving is harming yourself more than the other person, because maybe you don't even have contact with the other person. So the other person wouldn't really know if you have forgiven them or not. So you know what I mean? Maybe you haven't seen them for 20 years. They don't really care if you forgive them or not. So it's just about you and the forgiving process. And it's a decision. It's a decision in the beginning, and then the journey starts. And I can tell you from my experience when I had my first psychedelic experiences that I had really intense nights, especially with ayahuasca, of deep understanding and love towards my mother and all the other family members that were involved. And after this, in 2019, I thought like everything was dissolved. Everything was dissolved in a whole. Everything is one. Everything is love. There's nothing else than love, and everything that happens for a reason makes me stronger, and all this kind of thing. And I was kind of a while in that belief that this is forgiveness. And later I realized, like 2019, I had this experience, and later, I think in 2022, just then I really came to the anger. This was the time when I really dove deep into the whole trauma teaching and what it is, what is traumatized the nervous system, and what does it do to us when we experience traumatic things. And this was the time when I felt, okay, maybe I did not forgive yet. So I did not forgive. And it's not just like we have to see there are all the different parts in us. They were involved and they were formed out of the experiences we had. That, for example, you're in a children, or you're in a teenagers, and so I had this really intense weeks when I really felt my inner 15 years old coming online big time and saying, no way I will forgive. This is not happening. What happened, what she did for years, I cannot forgive. I will not forgive. So this was, and there we have to make the distinction. Who is talking? Who is it that is saying that? Is it like me, the adult? Is it my inner children, the 4 years old? Or is it the angry 15 years old in my case? And from all this practice I had from inner child work and the coaching tools that I did with, you work with all your inner parts, you make like little figures and you use them as a symbol for different parts of yourself. And I realized this is my inner 16 years old. And if I would force her to, no, we're gonna forgive, it's all good, it's all good now, then this would be again a gaslighting of her feelings and her experience. So then I realized it's completely okay that there's still a part of me that cannot forgive, doesn't want to forgive, and I don't know if that will ever happen. So I was, again, this is the most important part. We turn to ourselves and we are the parent that we never had, validating our own experience. So we're turning towards ourselves and saying, okay, maybe me, adult Franziska, oh, sorry, the microphone. Me, the parent, the adult Franziska, who is acting as the parent to all the inner children I have, maybe I can forgive because I know, of course, she did her best. And I know many things that happened to her and that caused the whole thing. I learned about transgenerational trauma, how that travels through generations and causes trauma to be passed on without all the involved people not even knowing what is happening. So then I kind of accepted there's a part of me that cannot yet forgive. And for me, that is okay. I told my inner 16 years old, that's fine. I completely understand. Because, I have been there. I have seen what is happening. I know why the pain might be so strong. So this part of me cannot forgive. But on the other side, from my spiritual point of view and my spiritual experiences, especially the experiences with psychedelics and meditation, all this deep understanding and compassion for people who hurt other people because they have been hurt. And this is not invalidating my inner 16 years old because I understand her, she has her right to not forgive, but I also understand on a higher scale, on a higher level that hurt people, and everybody is always giving their best on their level of consciousness. This is definitely true. Like when you, I don't know, if you have experienced violence or physical intense situations, let's say, where you have maybe not been your best self, maybe you have been the one acting like a little bit out of control, you have been the one who made the situation escalate, maybe you even had some narcissistic traits. We have to be really honest there to ourselves, and remember what have been my worst moments. And then think about, in these moments, let's say maybe you have been even physically violent to somebody else. And then think about, in this moment, did I still do everything that I could? And usually the answer is yes. The answer is actually always yes. We always do the best we can. And if this is, you scream, you throw stuff, you shut, you slam doors, then in this moment, this is the best you can do because you are triggered, you're completely out of control, you're not in logical thinking, you're completely in your survival fight mode or whatever. So, and this brings me again to the spiritual perspective, also what Eckhart Tolle says. There is no guilt, there's just unconsciousness. You are not conscious in this moment. You kind of, in the situations when you have a fight and then it gets really bad, and then out of a sudden you kind of have this feeling of waking up and like, whoa, what's happening here? This is when the consciousness comes in. And before that, it's ego. It's your ego fighting. It's your ego in the fight mode, flight mode, and whatever your mode you're in. Everybody has their like kind of preferences for ego modes, like the survival modes. And when you think about, of course, in your logical mind, you would not have reacted like that. You would think like, no, we should have talked, or I should have left the conversation. In your logical mind, you know that. But in the moment you're triggered, the trigger takes over, and this is so strong. Guys, these triggers are like, you lose it. You completely lose it. And it's not, in a way, it's not you in this moment acting. It's something taking over and acting. And then you kind of wake up after and you're like, oh my God, what have I done? And really important point I want to make here is that fact that it's not you, and it's like kind of your ego entity acting out your triggers and your pain, does not it does not take the responsibility away from you. So still, of course, if you, for example, you hit somebody in the face out of the escalated fight, and you say, no, it was not me, it was my ego taking over. No. You are responsible anyway, of course. Like, otherwise everybody could go around and don't take responsibility for your stuff. We have to take responsibility for everything. But we can understand more and have more compassion. Why is it happening like that? And what is the whole dynamic behind? And so this also helps tremendously on the forgiving path, because I know when my mother was in her right senses and she was not triggered and she was peaceful and everything, she would not in the world have done the things she had done. So I know that, and all these different kind of factors, they're coming together, and in my opinion, it's completely okay, and it can coexist to say, I forgave because I know, I really deeply understand, I really deeply realize that everybody is acting out of their level of consciousness and development, like your soul's development. On the other side, it's completely okay to have parts they cannot forgive because what happened was on a physical level. It was just, too bad to be able to forgive. And I think the most important part is that we turn to ourselves and we look, what is inside of me that wants to be heard, that wants to be parented, that wants to be nourished, and stop forcing ourselves. We need to forgive in order to be free. We need to forgive in order to let the past go. Of course, we need to forgive, but it can also take a while. And it's also okay when there are different parts of you that cannot yet do that because there's still some pain that needs to be processed. And let me just look on my paper quick. 1 second. You can enjoy the view. Meanwhile, I'll give you a little view. You don't see the lake. Yeah. And yeah, at the last point, I want to come to the point what forgiveness really was for me. And the question in the end is anyway not what is forgiveness for me. The question is, what is forgiveness for you? What is forgiveness for you? What do you need to forgive? Or what is the reason you cannot forgive? And for me, what really helped was, it's not like this act of I'm standing on a pedestal and I'm the one graciously forgiving everybody. No, it's like just me and my life and the universe, and saying to myself, I'm just letting go of the outcome. I'm letting go of the expectation of anything, the expectation of ever hearing an apology, the expectation of ever creating a new bond, forever, ever forming the relationship I ever hoped for. Because this is also like can be a trap. I forgive because I know then I let go of the anger but in the back of your mind you're kind of just doing that in the hope of the other person coming to you and apologizing. So that's not real forgiveness. And so the letting go of expectations for anything, let the situation be as it is, even if there will never be an apology, even if nobody will ever come to you and say, yes, it was wrong what I did. Even just imagine if that will never happen. Would you still want to forgive for yourself? So this is a really complex topic, and I hope you get my point, that I hope I made myself clear in the way what I mean, that you cannot look at it just on the worldly perspective, and you can also not look at it just from the spiritual perspective, because there's a whole picture to that. There's like a whole picture. You cannot just say everything is one and there's nothing to forgive. But you can also not hold on just on the physical and leave the spiritual perspective completely out of the picture. So it's really important to read about these things, to learn about these things, and feel inside of you what resonates with you, what feels right for you. And don't take any, like, let's say for example you read a book about forgiveness and you feel this resistance. It's really interesting to feel, is that just not resonating with me, or is it like a resistance out of an inner part of me who has really difficult times to forgive? And I highly encourage you to do inner parts work, inner child's work, because there are so many parts of us. It's not just one. We are not just one being. First of all, we change all the time. Then in difficult situations, we dissociate. We create this inner parts, this inner wounded parts, and usually they are suppressed. So on this journey, they're coming up, and maybe in one year you feel like this, maybe in the other year you feel like this. Nobody, or not even yourself, should like tell you, or you don't even have to feel for yourself that just if you say now, I feel like I have forgiven, maybe in 1 year you can say, no, I have not forgiven. And this is completely okay and completely fine, because like I said, it's a journey with so many layers, and it takes some time to come to terms with all the different aspects of you, and to release some anger. Sometimes we have so much anger that covers up all this, the sadness and the feeling of hopelessness and powerlessness, which is a horrible feeling. Feeling completely powerful and hopeless, weak, is a horrible feeling, guys. We cannot underestimate that. It sounds like, yeah, I'm feeling powerless, but it's like, if you really remember just logically, powerlessness, to be just completely at the mercy of another human being who obviously is kind of an enemy or does not have your best interest at heart, it's a horrible feeling. So we have to understand that we suppress that we cover it up with anger and success and achieving and all these kind of powerful feelings, because nobody wants to feel that. And then in this process, you kind of come to the different layers and you discover this weak parts of you. They have been suppressed because you don't want to feel it. And then you feel what they feel. And this is not really the first idea that comes to their mind. Oh yeah, I want to forgive because I want to be free. First, they want to be nurtured. They want to be cared for. They want to be heard, especially heard. And this is why inner parts work is so precious, because you start to listen to parts of yourself they maybe never have been heard in the past as a child, when you were standing there crying and nobody was listening, nobody cared for your emotions, for your world. And when you do that, when you start doing that, these inner parts, they kind of calm down after a while. They calm down. You are the one parenting them. You take responsibility for yourself. You stop waiting for the outside world, for somebody or something to rescue you. You stop and you start to take the responsibility. And this also makes forgiveness much easier, because the need for justice kind of goes away a little bit, because you feel like you do the justice to yourself. There doesn't need to be somebody calling you or writing you a letter like, I'm so sorry what I've done to you. You did the justice for yourself. And this creates such a big level of self-love and self-responsibility and self-respect that it's easier to let go. And like, I know they did their best. I know it because I also did my best my whole life. And I have behaved in really bad ways in the past. And still I did my best back then, because somehow I didn't know how else to behave, because I was so hurt and wounded and stuff. So, but still I have to take the responsibility for that. So you're the one being there and rescuing you. And in this process, it gets easier to let go of the need for the person you cannot forgive to apologize or to do something that you think you need in order to forgive, if that makes any sense. Guys, it's complicated. It's complicated. I understand. But it's possible. It's possible. We can come to terms with that. And the way I feel now is this unconditional love for the human being that raised me with all that she could do. In some ways, I didn't even know how she did it, because there was no money. There was just struggle and like unresolved trauma with like not just me. I had other siblings. So I'm having a big respect as well. I'm having respect. I'm having a love and in the love in the sense that I does not need this human in my life, because on the physical level, it's still toxic and not healthy for me. But on a spiritual level, I'm connected to her anyway. We cannot not be connected. It's impossible. So, and all these things made me come to peace with that, really, to an inner peace, I don't need an apology anymore. I just wish the best. I'm like, I wish healing, like for her, for all the human beings, for everybody who is like behaving badly or who's, it took me a while. It took me a while to come to this point, because I had a lot of anger. I had a lot of anger and feeling of, I want justice. But it doesn't help in the end. It doesn't help. We are ourselves the most important person. And what I think is really true is that we should be open really to forgive in the way of letting go. Stop knocking on the door. I think I mentioned that in another video I'm not sure anymore. I'm gonna link it in the description, where I explained about the castle or the fortress you're standing and you're knocking at the door, it needs to happen. And to come to terms with it, it might never happen. And so we can move on. We can move on and let go, and but letting go with love, not with revenge or pain and like, I'm letting go, I don't care anymore. This is still the anger speaking. You feel the difference. If it's you probably feel the difference if it's still anger, or if you can really peaceful say, it's fine, I'm letting go, but still I put my boundaries and maybe go no contact, or I still don't want to see the person. This can all coexist. It's not just black and white. It needs to be like this or it needs to be like this. Different things can coexist, and it can still make sense, and everything is legit and valid. So yes, I think that's all I want to say to this topic. And let me know what you think about it. Let me know about your journey of forgiveness or things that you feel you cannot forgive. I know there are things in the world that are so horrible that we feel and think they cannot be forgiven. I know. Think about yourself. How do I see forgiveness? What it is for me? What do I hope that happens when I be able to forgive? And what if I cannot forgive? All really important, interesting questions you can ask yourself. And yes, then let me know what you think about it. I'm gonna walk a little bit further through the snow, and wish you all the best. I wish you a beautiful day, evening, night, whatever you do, wherever you are. And I see you in the next video, my friends. Namaste. Bye bye.